Hi everyone, I'm Tanishka. You might know me as the Moon Woman, and I just was feeling it was time to speak about the full moon in Pisces that we are approaching this week. So yeah, look, normally full moon is a time when you feel like going out and partying. If you've been a complete recluse as I have, then you're completely normal, if there is such a thing, because Pisces is the sign of the recluse, the mystic. And so yeah, it's probably the worst night of the year to plan a party. Hi Kelly for joining me live, and Megan. So yeah, look, it's really going to bring up for us whatever karmic stories and wounds that we've just literally done to death, So this is an opportunity for a fresh emotional start, because the full moon, well, the moon it brings up our emotions, but nothing like the full moon. The full moon, and when it's in a water sign, which is this full moon that we're approaching, Pisces, it really is going to bring up our emotions, but from the absolute depths, because Pisces is the last of the three water signs. So we go deeper than we did in Cancer or Scorpio. So it's kind of like going to the depths of the ocean where it's black. So you're going into the void. You're going into the really murky, the stuff that's so hidden from your conscious mind, that is so unresolved, so possibly toxic emotions, but really deep, old, past pain. And it can be pain that you took on, and usually is, to heal for your whole ancestral lineage, because this is about, clearing the collective pain. So if you feel increasingly sensitive, reclusive, and emotional as we get towards this weekend's full moon, cut yourself some slack and be gentle with yourself. So, water therapy, if you're somewhere cold, warm baths. If you're somewhere warm, obviously, get into a natural body of water like a lake to cool down. But, when we really commune with the element of water, it helps us to soften. It helps us to be compassionate and gentle with ourselves and our sensitivities. And it holds us, like if you think about getting in a bath, that's like being in the womb in the amniotic fluid. It's like, if you don't have someone who can physically hold you to get in a bath, we feel held, So, with Pisces, all of our boundaries can dissolve. So we can feel a bit like, a snail without a shell, like an amoeba, very, very uber sensitive. But it's about understanding how we can harness our sensitivities rather than just feeling ashamed of how sensitive we feel, which is kind of the legacy of 5,000 years of patriarchal consciousness, that, and that's not man-hating, it's just living and being conditioned in a culture that does not honor our feminine traits equally with our masculine traits. So it doesn't matter whether we're male or female, we've all had the feminine oppressed in us. So our sensitivity has been viewed as a weakness rather than a strength, which it is. And with Pisces, we have to learn how to feel our way blind, okay, using our subtle senses. Because, Pisces is ruled by Neptune, the planet of dreams, the planet of the netherworld. And so nothing seems clear, okay? So if you're feeling confused, if you're feeling lost, if you're like, I don't know who I am anymore or where I'm going, I can't make a decision, don't worry, this too shall pass. So it's not about trying to think our way out of it, okay? Imagine if you were completely in the dark. There's no strategy for that. You have to use your subtle senses. So your hunches, your knowing, which is, your gnosis, your intuition, and really go with the subtleties, with those those sheaths, those more subtle bodies, and feel, where do I feel to go? What do I feel I need to do moment to moment to navigate your way when you can't see the path ahead? So that's our challenge this week. But there's heaps more. So, you know, the sign, the symbol of Pisces is the fish that swim in opposite directions. So it can seem contradictory, and this is where a lot of the confusion can happen. It's like, oh, but if I do this, then I won't have this, and yeah. So Pisces asks us to transcend the rational and consider the fact that everything has a purpose, everything is divine, and often it's not until afterwards that we make sense of it and go, oh, I understand why I had to, you know, what appeared to be going backwards in order to be moving forwards. So let me try and make that clearer. Everything is a paradox. So in Pisces, we get tested on that. You know, if we're really stuck in the rational mind, we start judging. That's right, that's wrong. And you know, we can't feel our way through then. So the challenge right now is for us to, you know, if we feel overwhelmed by the paradoxes in a given situation, then our challenge is to see how two things can coexist and both be true. Yeah, we don't need to make one wrong, or, you know, in order to be right or righteous. Okay, so when we can accept that the divine is in both the light and the dark, the good and the bad, then we see everything as a gift. We see the all, and that helps us to return to innocence, because Pisces is the last sign on the zodiac wheel, the 12th sign. So it's a time of getting it, where we go, oh, you know, I don't need to carry this heavy backpack of rocks on my back, you know, and cast myself in the role of victim. I chose all of it, every second of it. Before I even incarnated, I agreed to all of it because it was exactly what I needed to learn the soul lessons that I said I wanted to learn in this incarnation. Or all of those hardships and challenges and painful, traumatic situations, I can see looking back, have all prepared me for my mission, for that piece of the jigsaw that I knew I could bring to help the greater good, or the Earth Mother at this time. So this is an opportunity to make sense of the chaos, make sense of the dark, make sense of the painful situations that we've been through. And we do that by awakening the inner mystic. Now, the inner mystic in the ancient feminine traditions, well, that is the ancient feminine tradition, mysticism, which is simply teaching people how to navigate the dark, which is not evil, but rather the unknown, the chaos, the place of the void. And we do that by understanding the mythic realm, parables, you know, those universal stories, universe, one story. When we recognize the stories, then it's easier to find our way out by making choices that will make for a good ending, you know, or by reading the symbols, because, you know, the archetype, the psychological aspect of the mystic governs the third eye. In Greek mythology, she was called Hecate. The Norse knew her as Hel, H-E-L, which is where the Christians appropriated that word for their version of the underworld. To the Celts, she was called Caredwin. But she is, you know, the sorceress, the one who is close to source, because she's not afraid to go absolutely to the void to the absolute depths within in order to sit in the nothingness with the divine. You know, we have this concept that the divine is the light, and it is. It is the sacred masculine, but the sacred feminine is the dark. And we've been taught the dark is evil. We've been taught to fear the dark, to run screaming from the dark, to never willingly go into the dark. And as a result, we do ourselves a great disservice, because the dark is inevitable in life. And if we have no tools, if we have no strategies to navigate the dark, we end up trapped in the dark, in the underworld. Whereas if we have been initiated into the wisdom teachings of the ancient mystic tradition, the sacred feminine tradition, we can then navigate our way out of the labyrinth, out of that cosmic womb, and not fear it, you know. So, you know, this full moon is likely to take us down into those depths. So there may be a catalyst. It may be that deep old wounds come to the surface. You may be challenged to look at your past and what's resolved in order to move forwards. And this week, you know, it's very much about reading the synchronistic signposts. That's how, you know, we awaken the mystic, by reading the synchronicities, the serendipitous events, and then life becomes a magical mystery tour, you know, where you see you're not alone, that the divine is there with you moment to moment. You've just, like a game, got to follow the signs, you know. So this week I saw a sign. I was at my weekly Ayurvedic appointment where I get pummeled with sesame oil and then covered with this paste of garlic, onion, black pepper, moringa, ground up rice, and then I sit in a hot box and sweat it out. It's very good. But when I walked out, there was this image of a frog sitting there with a crown and a bouquet of red roses, and I immediately went, oh, it's the Frog Prince. And you might remember that story as a child. And I couldn't remember all the details, so I Googled it. And it turns out that it's a very ancient story that was then appropriated by the Brothers Grimm, as all of our fateful tales were. So the fairy tales were the teaching parables of the ancient feminine tradition, the tales for the folk tales. And patriarchal writers like the Brothers Grimm, I mean, my goodness, what a name, they distorted the meanings of all of those so that they were disempowering for the feminine, had the opposite sort of meaning. So looking between the lines of this story, it's a story where, you know, there's a young woman of, you know, noble birth, and she's lost her most prized possession, which is a golden ball, so a sphere of light. And it drops into this pond, and it goes down to the very bottom, to the murky depths. And this frog jumps out of the pond and offers to retrieve it for her, because, you know, she's bemoaning her fate, saying, oh, it's worth more than everything I own, which it is, of course. You know, illumination, the light that makes sense of the dark, you know, it is, you can't put a price on it. And so, bless this frog, he goes down and he gets her ball and he gives it to her, but on the condition that she allows him to share her dinner, as in eat from her plate, and share her bed, which are symbolic acts. You know, these are acts of communion. And she agrees to it. She's just like, yeah, whatever, I want my ball. And then once she gets the ball, she reneges on the deal. She completely forgets that she's promised him anything, and she goes home, and then she hears this tap, tap, tapping in the middle of dinner that night. And she opens the door, and there's the frog sitting at the front door. And he's like, you made a deal. It's time to honor it. And her father chides her and says, if you've given your word, then you must honor your word, you know, because our integrity is our word. So she lets in the frog, and he shares her plate and shares her bed and does this for 3 nights. And on the final night, she wakes up and he's transformed into a prince, or a king, as the story was originally. Apparently it goes right back to, you know, beyond the Romans. Everything was beyond the Romans. So things kind of went pear-shaped. And it was said that an enchantment was cast over this frog, that, you know, he was transformed from being this, you know, lovely young man into a creature that no woman would want. And I think that that's very symbolic, because when we think about our wounds, our deepest, darkest wounds, which is what Pisces, full moon in Pisces, is likely to evoke for us, it can really bring up the elusive stories of, you know, thinking that we are a creature nobody could love. You know, that, or we look at all of our stories, we look at our past as evidence of why, oh, that couldn't work because in the past it's never worked, you know. And so we allow our past to limit our future. And Hecate, who I spoke about, she can walk from past, present, future. She can be simultaneously in all 3, because she observes the past, her past choices, but she's not enslaved by it. Likewise, she can look to the future and go, yes, that is my intention, but she's able to really be responsible moment to moment in the present, knowing that that is how, you know, we heal both. Because whatever, you know, we heal 7 generations forward and back. So this is a really potent time to invoke your ancestral lineage, because whatever wounds you have, you are healing them for them. And they cannot help you with the task unless they are specifically invited. Otherwise, it's not honoring free will, which is a universal cosmic law. But if you ask, you know, I mean, every morning I invoke my ancestors to help me, and they've been waking me up, you know, in the early hours of the morning with downloads for the book that I'm writing. So, you know, ask and it is given. So this is a time for deep healing, okay? And you may not even know what it is you're healing, okay? You may just need to dissolve, yeah, and be baptized through a river of your own tears. This is, you know, about allowing the function of feeling to lead us, knowing that when it is spent, when that feeling has been given full expression, that you will be freed. But so long as we don't dare feel, that we stay stagnant like that murky pond, you know. Another sort of parable, I suppose, that speaks to this time is the Fisher King. And this is, you know, the elder man who is sitting on the lake, spending all his days fishing. Now, the fish, as I said earlier, is the symbol for Pisces. It was the ancient symbol for mysticism, which then again was appropriated when Yeshua, the Christ's teachings, were appropriated by the Roman Empire and repackaged into a dogma for their patriarchal religion. But the Fisher King represents somebody who will contemplate through reflection. So sitting out on the water in his boat, he's able to look at himself. He's able to get still enough to have those quiet thoughts with himself, which is the wisdom of the heart. You know, the mind is much louder than the heart's voice. We have to come in to meet the heart wisdom. Whereas, you know, if we're caught up in all the daily to-do tasks and the distractions of people talking at us and everyone else's agendas imposing on us, we don't have a hope in hell of hearing our heart's voice. So this may be a time when you need to create complete sacred space, which is the opposite axis of Pisces, Virgo, in order to hear yourself think, to come home to the deep wisdom of your inner mystic. And, you know, the fishermen, you know, they spoke about Yeshua, Jesus, as the Greeks renamed him, his, you know, some of his disciples being fishermen. It's that they were mystics. It wasn't that they, you know, caught fish for a living. You know, these were men that weren't afraid to plumb the depths, to feel, to go into their deepest vulnerabilities and awaken their wisdom. So, you know, if you start being feeling acutely vulnerable, don't make a story about, oh God, I'm fucked up, I'm wounded, I'm a victim, I'm never going to be whole and healed. Embrace it. It's like, you know, when you're birthing a baby, there's no emotion that doesn't come out. Yeah, if that baby's coming out of you physically, everything that you've felt perhaps in the last 9 months of gestation has to come out for that baby to get out of your body. And the same is true with a mystic rebirth, with a shamanic death and a soul rebirth. We have to feel it all, you know. So like the spiritual wade in the water, you've got to get wet. You've got to have the experience in order to shift it. You've got to go back and revisit the wound in order to release it into the light of day, so it's not stuck down there in the dungeons of your psyche. So another shadow of Pisces is the martyr. So it's like the victim-martyr polarity. So if you find yourself sighing heavily, chances are your martyr is kind of driving the bus. And if you find yourself going into resentment, which is anger that you haven't expressed, which is then kind of curdled into wine, okay? So then we start to whine. So, you know, that's if you're in the martyrdom, but if you're in victimhood, you'll be blaming other people. So both of these are a flag that you are disempowered by stories that you're running. And when we run disempowered stories, it churns up emotion and it takes us down into those dense, treacly, dark emotions, which are then pretty hard to get out of on our own. So the challenge this week as we approach this full moon in Pisces is to really confront ourselves and say, well, we don't do anything without a payoff. So what is my ego's payoff for playing these stories that, you know, life is unfair or things don't work out for me, good things only happen for other people, whatever the negative affirmations are that you're running, write them out and actually look at them. Look at the boogeyman, okay? Boogeyman's only scary if we're running from him. If we turn around and face the boogeyman, then we're like, oh, well, hang on a second. You can start to deal with it. So, you know, it may be that unconsciously you are addicted to these states of anger, resentment, blame, victimhood, martyrdom, because so long as we can make it about life treating us unfairly and we are the passive one or other people not honoring us, the payoff that we get is we never have to look at ourselves. Okay, so this is about, if you want to get off that groundhog day of just going round in circles and having the same dramas, the same karmic lessons, whether it's with the same people or different people, if you don't learn the lesson, instead of going up a step and then spiraling like the Fibonacci spiral, yeah, the golden mean, and finding yourself evolving, you just go round in circles. And that's when the fights get more intense, because each time you revisit the same issue, it carries the charge of what was unresolved from the last time. So this is about us stopping and putting down our baggage and going through the bags and going, what am I carrying? I'm the only one. There's no point blaming my parents, blaming my exes. I am the one in the present who is going to take responsibility for this, because it's heavy and it's impacting what I can have moving forwards. So, what else do I want to say? This would be a great time to schedule a healing or a reading, or, you know, something like rebirthing that will enable you to shift really big old emotions, so that you can let go of the past and let the past be in the past, okay? Hecate, who I mentioned, the archetype of the wise woman, the mystic, who is coming to the fore in our psyche this week, she carries a double-headed axe or a scythe, and that represents that we must be prepared to let go of how things were or what our story is about life, let go of the past if we want to grow, if we want to evolve. Because if we're not in right relationship with death, if we can't invoke that dark goddess to be the destroyer so that then she can also create consciously, then we just unconsciously create on that wheel of karma. We don't even take responsibility for our choices. So understandably, if we're saying, actually, I'm feeling like I've outgrown a situation, it's almost like shoes that feel too tight. We know when we've outgrown a situation because it stops inspiring us. It starts to become heavy. It starts to energetically drain us so that we feel tired even to think about it. Yeah, it feels burdensome. So that's a sign that you've outgrown a situation. And if you're feeling that about something, it's time to let it go. And this full moon's really probably going to bring it up. We've got a lot of planets retrograde at the moment. So this is supporting us to really look at our past, look at ourselves. But ultimately, our challenge is to recognize that we need endings. Otherwise, there can't be beginnings. We can't be in right relationship with the cyclic wheel that is death and rebirth. And this is, again, what the sacred feminine mystery teachings, mysticism teaches people. So when we say to people, I don't want to do this karmic dance anymore. I'm feeling like I need to try something different, maybe relocate, maybe go to a new job, or yeah, just try something different. People can arc up. It's like, well, hang on a minute, you're being disloyal and I've given the best years of my life to you, or whatever. Often it's because they're so afraid of the unknown, of the chaos, of that place of pure potential, and they don't trust themselves to be able to choose or create the life of their heart's dreaming. So they want you to stay with them in the old dance, you know, and just recognize that with compassion for what it is. It's rooted in fear. It's not rooted in love. So always trust your feelings as the guide. How does this feel to me? Does this feel energizing and inspiring, or does it feel uncomfortable? Does it feel draining? Do I feel like I'm being manipulated emotionally? So, you know, Hecate is the archetypal witch. Patriarchy taught us to fear the archetype of the witch. A witch is simply a woman with her wits about her. So, you know, when we use our wits, our wisdom, we can find our way out of any situation, even if it looks completely hopeless and black, you know, pitch black and dark. And so she was the aspect that lived in the underworld, in that deep place within the earth, that would help people that couldn't find their way back to the everyday world or to the light, by helping them to make sense of their unresolved dark experiences. So we need the witch, both within our own psyche and in service to the community. So, and something else we have happening this full moon is we have a grand Earth trine. Oh, feeling thirsty. Oh, well, talking so much. So what a trine is when we have planets making a 60-degree angle to one another, which is a harmonious aspect. So anything that is a multiple of 3, it's like the Trinity, you know, of Maiden Mother Crone or Night Sage King, or, you know, that then got appropriated into the patriarchal thing of Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But, you know, the Trinity of Sky Father, Earth Mother, Holy Child. So there's a magic in 3, okay? There's a beautiful sort of synastry to it. And so what we have is we have 3 planets forming an equilateral triangle, and it's pointing down to the Earth. So the Earth is Mama Gaia, is the sacred feminine. We are going down. And that's not a bad thing, okay? Because you cannot ascend. There's all these, you know, New Agers wanting to ascend. I mean, by God, here in Ubud, believe me, everyone is wanting to ascend. It's all about ecstatic dance and wearing white. But they don't understand, 90% of them, that you can't ascend without descending. It's only when we go to the absolute bottom that, voom, we resurrect. Okay, so this is why we must take that descent journey deep into the sacred feminine, into the dark. So we have the sun in Virgo. It's not there yet. It'll be moving in on the 24th, the 23rd if you're in the Northern Hemisphere on the other side of the date line. And the sun is moving into Virgo. Virgo being the sign of sacred service, the sign of the priest, the priestess, the one who sees themselves as a vessel, as a conduit to anchor heaven on earth. So it's a beautiful month that we're going to be heading into. And so this is a time when we look at, you know, what is sacred to me? Yeah, you know, the more our life reflects our soul values, the more we create heaven on earth, the more every aspect, every facet of our lives becomes an act of beauty, an act of devotion. So the other planets are Uranus. Uranus is the planet of destiny, of the future, of Kundalini. It can bring in sudden change, and it's in Taurus. So the sign of the Earth Mother, the sign of love, the sign of beauty. But it shifted in April this year. So I've spoken about this before. It's in there for 7 years. And this is when we're most likely to see physical earth changes. So here in Bali, we had a 7 earthquake again last night, a 5 earthquake yesterday during the day. You know, it's there's physical movement, which you know, really brings up, well, what am I doing in my physical world? You know, how am I honoring my physical body and my foundations? The other planet that we have in this grand trine, it's a mouthful, is Saturn, which is, you know, in the mythic reality, it's Kronos, Father Time. He can be a crotchety old dude. He's, you know, like the long white beard, real patriarch. But we need him on board. Otherwise, we don't take responsibility for things. Now, if he's not tempered, then, you know, we can just become a pain in the ass, you know, being a real stickler to the law with everybody that we meet. But he's in his ruling sign in Capricorn at the moment, and Capricorn, Mars has just moved into Capricorn too. It's the sign of the empire builder, but it's about conserving energy and only investing in something that we feel, yes, this is for the long term. Okay, so this is a very auspicious full moon, having this grand trine. It's an opportunity, I feel, for us to really anchor something that is going to be nourishing for the earth, and really honor the sacredness of who we are and our connection with the earth long term. It's also an opportunity for us to anchor the dream, because if we think about, you know, Pisces, it's about the dreaming, you know, where we go when we close our eyes at night, or when we go between the worlds in a shamanic visioning quest, or using plant medicines, or you know, any sort of shamanic process such as chanting or dance meditation as a medicine, or even working with mask, and art. You know, art therapy takes us deep in between the worlds, particularly if we're listening to entrancing music, you know, or using mantra to take us in to an altered state with the river of song, or incantation, anything repetitive. Even if you are spinning, yeah, this is how women used to go into trance states, you know, spinning. I've spoken about this before. So this is an opportunity for us to enter the dreaming and then get clear on what it is our soul wants us to commit to anchor out in the waking world, into our external reality. Now, for those of you that are already connected with, on the inner planes, what it is that your soul is clear that it's building, but your external waking world is not reflecting that yet, you might think, God, maybe I'm just delusional. Trust, okay? This, you know, when we're working with Pisces, we're working with, in the Kabbalistic tree, the Sephirot of Da'at. This is like the third eye. And it tests us to really believe in what we're being shown, what our knowing is on the inner realms, and have faith even when everything looks at its darkest, okay? So you may get tested on that. It's kind of like the, you know, the big challenge. Can you believe in yourself to fulfill the mission, to, you know, be the prodigal son or daughter, to make it through the dark times, which is really just our own greatest fears and doubts. And we've been journeying those already with this month, with the sun in Leo. You know, that brings up the archetypal Hercules in the cave who, you know, confronts the lion, which is, oh God, can I do this, you know? So it's perfectly normal to question ourselves, but the challenge is not to collapse into fear and to go into complete passivity and roll over and die, but to just go, okay, I need to trust what my subtle senses, what my knowing is, what the quiet voice of my heart and soul is, you know, urging me to do, and what the signs, the mystery, you know, my ancestors, my guides, Great Spirit, the Mother is urging me to do, even though the appearances may be to the contrary. So we have Jupiter, the planet of expansion, now in Scorpio, which is the sign of transformation, and it's forming a trine with Neptune, which is the ruling planet of Pisces. So this is an opportunity to say, look, if we trust in that knowing, we have the opportunity to transform ourselves, to transform the world, and to expand into a version of ourselves we didn't even think was possible, and to transform and expand the reality here on earth into something we couldn't have imagined was possible. So this is a very potent time. It's at the crossroads, yeah? Pisces is that, which path are you going to choose? One is going to take you into doing things the way you've always done them, and the other one is going to take you somewhere new. Okay, so it's how much do you trust in yourself when you get to that crossroads to navigate it, to go, I can do this. Even though this path is the unknown, there I know where that goes. It goes round in circles. So it's an opportunity to face our fear of the unknown, to be able to move forwards. The other point I want to make, oh, actually, no, I won't. Sorry, don't mind me. With Pisces, the opposite sign is Virgo, which I said before. And so if we are to be empowered in our Piscean energy, regardless of what sign you were born in, we all, as we journey around the mandala of the signs, with the sun and the moon moving through them, we all get initiated into needing to step up and embody the strengths of each sign. If we want to feel whole, if we want our lives to be fulfilling. So for us to be in right relationship with our Piscean lessons and energy, we need to balance it with Virgo. Virgo is an earth sign. As I said, it's the sign of the priest, the priestess. And so it's about our service. Now, I watched a great video, and I'll put the link to it in my astro forecast that I'm writing at the moment. And she spoke about, whose name escapes me, I'm sorry, I will put it in the astro forecast, how, you know, when we made the shift at the end of the Mayan calendar, you know, on the 21st of December 2012, into the fifth dimension, which is throat chakra. So the chakras are literally the doorways to the different dimensions of reality. And throat chakra is about healing. So, and about being of service. It's about brotherhood, sisterhood. So this is the paradigm that we are in now. So if our life is not reflecting that, we are likely to manifest illness, okay? Something we need to heal. And this axis of Pisces Virgo can bring it up. So just a bit of a flag. If you've got some sort of niggly issue that's, you know, not going away with your body, go and get it checked out. This may be a time when you get a diagnosis, but better the devil you know, you know. And it's certainly a time to make that choice at the crossroads and choose life, regardless of where you are. You know, this can be about transcending addictions. You know, we use addiction, which is shadow Pisces, as a way of avoiding healing. Okay, it's like, well, you know, I can self-medicate rather than heal. Okay, so this is about us doing the inner work. Virgo is about our external work. Pisces is about doing the inner work. And the quality of our external work, our service to the collective, is only as good as the degree to which we invest in our inner work. So if you're not already doing a daily practice, even if you do it for 5 minutes, it's better than not at all. And it looks different for every person. For you, it might be sitting in your garden. For somebody else, it might be, you know, doing some qigong or some yoga or some toning. It's got to be something that is pleasurable, that you do to be in a state of communion with Source, with the Earth Mother, with your own soul, with your body. The more aspects you bring in, the more fulfilling and nourishing it will be, to the point where you go, I can't imagine starting my day without this. And the more that we do that, we embody that lovely quote of Kahlil Gibran's from his book, The Prophet, which is, work is love made visible. I love this quote. And I only got it on a whole new level today when I was writing the astro forecasts for you all. And it's that okay, let me get this right. Work, when we do what we love, okay, that is a real gift of beauty. When we don't do what we love, it's tinged with resentment and it feels like a burden, okay? So, you know, Virgo asks us to make sure that we're always doing something that is uplifting, that is stimulating for us. And if we've outgrown it, acknowledge it, let it go so we don't become drained and resentful and give from an empty cup, you know. But the insight that I got today was that if work is love made visible, doing the inner work of healing is the ultimate act of self-love. I'll say that again. If our work, our service to others is what we love made visible for others, then doing the inner work of healing, of integrating the parts of us that are wounded, that are in pain, that are rejected, that we have abandoned, are then embraced. This is the ultimate act of self-love. This is the work of the deep feminine that we do in the dark, that is spiritual midwifery. So this is the invitation this full moon. If you don't know where to start, start by setting an intention, by saying, I want to heal whatever is unhealed in me. Or if you've got some idea of what that situation is or that relationship is, set that intention. Step 2, ask for help from your ancestors, from the benevolent universe, from all that is. If you do those 2 things, the third thing is to then notice the signs. Yeah? Because the universe will respond to that call. But maybe not in the way that your ego expects. So our job is to just be aware and to notice when the divine is working through somebody. It might be the dragonfly that came to visit me today, you know, and I look up what the medicine of that is. Or it might be that image I saw of the frog prince, yeah? So take the time, if you see something that grabs your attention, that you then go and look up what is the symbolism of that. And good old Google, anybody, you don't need 1,000 oracle decks anymore, you know. So, yeah, this is an opportunity for us to be reborn this full moon, but only if we're prepared to go to the depths and become the resurrection. And frogs were sacred to Hecate because they represent the resurrection. In ancient Egypt, they had amulets of frogs because they look like embryos. They look like the Maori tiki. And they represent the purification that comes from drowning in our own tears and being reborn with a new perspective. So with that, I hope you have a blessed week. Be gentle, be kind, be compassionate with yourself, because the degree to which we show that towards ourselves is the degree to which we can extend that to others. If you feel this was helpful and insightful, you have my absolute blessing to share it with anybody that you intuitively feel. And I'll be publishing the Astro Oracle maybe later today. We'll see how I go. Okay, blessings. That's 10.